go back to Hearthstone log homes again. And the only reason that I use this because they got a really nice gallery. So log homes is a huge industry, and at one time it played a huge part in the history of the United States. So we had log homes, that see, they always throw up these beautiful little things. Log home history. Let's see that. Yeah, there we go. So this played a huge part in building America. So we came to the new land, and hopefully, if we were going to survive, then we had to get here, get some trees cut down, build us a house before winter set in. And so this is typically what we ended up with. So we had to get here and get it up very fast before the winter set in. You got to remember that not a whole lot of people, and I don't know why, not a whole lot of people, when they came to the New World, they settled in the South. Most of them settled in the North. New York was it was Delaware, New York was the center hubbub of arriving immigrants. And so it's colder than crap up there. And so we got to get this house built really quick. So these two houses here have wooden chimneys. And the reason that they have wooden chimneys is we had to get this thing up in a hurry. So we get here, we build this house with a wooden chimney. We take creek mud and we just absolutely coat the inside of this thing. And we hope and pray that this will last us the entire winter. Now, most did. And if they did, then once they had got through that first year, then the chimney would be torn down, and over the next summer, a new chimney would be erected made of stone. If you were a crappy, fast, didn't give a flip builder, and you were in a hurry, you didn't coat the inside of this chimney really good with creek mud, you lost the whole house. So you were just spinning your wheels, and you did a crappy job. You were lazy, and you probably didn't survive. If anybody's lived up north, you know that it's brutal up there. So hey, we know Texas is brutal, but not very many of these wooden chimneys still remain. Again, because generally after the first season, after the first winter, then they would tear these down and put them back with stone. If someone was really a good, maintenance person, they may have kept the wood chimney if it was built very well, and then they would have kept it caulked, I guess you could say, plastered on the inside so that it did not burn down and would last year after year after year after year. There are several in North Carolina. I couldn't put my finger on either one of them that have a wooden chimney, but I have seen some in North Carolina that have wooden chimney. Out west, shorter, faster one-room houses. A lot of these would have been one room. So it's basically just get here and let's sit, have us a place to keep us out of the elements, keep us warm at night, place to cook. Most of the cooking was done outside anyway, and then, move on. As time went on, this may turn into the kitchen, and we would build a living quarters, and then once we done that, then we would keep that separate, as in this. Here's the kitchen, here's the living quarters. Why do we keep it separate? Well, because the kitchen is used year round. All right, so that means that we've got a fire going on in this year round. And the chances of this burning down were higher than where we only had a fireplace that was used in the wintertime. And if we lost the kitchen, so be it. But we didn't lose the entire house. We didn't lose the entire everything. And I was trying to think, there is another one in Cades Cove, and I can't remember the darn name of it, that is separate, that is a little different. That one, that's not in Cades. Yeah, it is. That's it. Yeah. The Elijah Oliver place. So again, this is the kitchen. This is the spring house, the kitchen, and then the living quarters here. You definitely, if you haven't, you need to go to Cades Cove and just, ride your bicycle around the 11-mile route. In the wintertime, off season, October to May, maybe, or April, the road is closed on, no, I'm sorry, in the summer, it's closed on Saturday morning and Wednesday morning. You can ride your bicycle through the 11-mile loop without car. And that starts at 6. It opens up at 6 and lasts until 11 o'clock. And then they open up to cars.
How far is it from Asheville?
3 hours. It's Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Oh,
yeah. So the modern log homes that we have today, they are, again, these are all cut with machinery, not by hand. And then they take them out back, and some poor sap takes a foot as and makes these little marks in it. What is a foot as? A foot as is a way of, just making a balk, which is taking a tree and making it into a semi-square log. So if you're very proficient with this, and there's several different types of as, these are all for different purposes. When I was building log homes, I had a hammer that I would basically sharpen the claw on it, and I had me an as there. But a foot as is just longer. The handle is crooked, as you can see here, that so that you get this circular motion on here, so that you just take off a little bit of the meat, and you can basically make it look very nice. And so that's what happens here. Like I say, some poor fella is in the back shed going at it with these just to make it look pretty. This is the Bob Timberlake type log home, and let me give you some examples of that right quick. So in log homes, there's tons of different styles. You have the round logs, and you could have a button pass. And then you have, and what I mean by button pass, this log here butts up to this one, this passes over. And then you have what is called a cove or a seat cove. So the log on top is coved out underneath it, sets right directly on the other log. A lot of the logs that we had that I was showing you historically, they were not button pass, but just pass. In other words, they didn't have a log in here that would come in. They would just stick them on top of each other like this, and then fill this full of mud, creek mud with, well, pretty much like what Brian was talking about, that, that straw and mud mixture that was added up in there. And we called it chinking. And so chinking was a method that allowed a substance to be put in through here so that if these expand and contract, then you wouldn't have a problem that you might have here. And so, but we didn't have the technology that we do today. And most of this material that was put in here was a rigid material. Well, logs are very a dynamic material, meaning that they move all the time. So it was a constant battle trying to keep this patched up where it wouldn't leak. So that was one drawback of this. It is a log home is highly maintenance. If you know, even when you do it in the best methods, because of the way it's done. So then we started, you know, doing a method like this, where the logs were actually. This is where the dovetail actually gets its name. So it went back to round about here. This would be in a dovetail shape as well, and then we would just continue setting our timbers on top of the next one, and so that's you know, but this is not a very pretty looking log. And we had problems because remember I told you about those annular rings in here. Those annular rings are more dense and they would hold water, and you end up with rot on those, and they would rot out and cause a problem. Another method is the modern day dovetail, which is similar to this. And sure that I'm doing this correctly. Yes, I am. So the weight of this log pushing down on top of it actually pulls this log inward and making a tighter fit. And then, of course, the weight of all of these coming down, we're going to do the same thing with these opposing logs, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So it's very scientific, even though we didn't think of it at the time being scientific. And this is also considered a dovetail type corner, and but it's a little bit more sophisticated than this. And hopefully we can end up shedding off some of this water because we're using a whole log, and the annular rings are going to be somewhat like this on that log. Give you an idea, this is something that that we actually did when I was in business. We you know, I don't know if it's there. Let me go to Facebook. I know it's in Facebook. Basically, we bought 8x10 logs and cut them ourselves with a chainsaw. You know, it took a little bit of practice to get it, but you know, it's doable. But you end up with a very beautiful look. And so these are all cut with just a chainsaw, no pattern, or well, we did have a pattern, but it's basically, you know, we just draw it out on the end of it with a pencil and start whacking at it with a chainsaw. We used electric chainsaws, which did not have as much kick. And you'll notice that we did use the chinking method. The technology that we have today on the chinking is a latex sand method chinking, which can expand and contract almost up to 2 inches without tearing. So anytime any movement went through these logs, then we didn't have a problem with these tearing out. One thing also to note, when this type of log is used, any type of log really nowadays, there is and I'm going to draw this simply so I can just show you a better picture. I'm not going to put the dovetail in there. Basically, there is a bolt that goes in here. Let's change colors on that. There's a bolt that goes in and holds the next one to it. And so this, you know, this goes all the way up through there, and we put bolts every so often to hold everything together. Well, what happens is these will shrink. All of these will shrink. And so this has to take place with, we need to keep pressure on these. So what we would do is we take this huge spring and then we'd have the bolt, the screw going down in there. And when the log would shrink, then this spring kept tension on the top of the log at all times. Something else that we have to really take place and think about when working with log homes is that shrinkage. And so let's think about this. An 8 by 10 inch log can shrink as much as 25, or excuse me, they can shrink as much as an eighth to a quarter of an inch. So let's say if we've got a 10-foot high, no, let's say we've got an 8-foot high wall. So 8 of these logs, and they all shrink an eighth of an inch, then through the entire length of that wall, it has shrunk an entire inch. All right, so 1/8 at each one of them. So this whole wall has shrunk 1 inch. Well, what's the problem with that? It's not a problem. Well, it can be a problem. So when we put the second floor on, the second floor actually sets into this wall. And then generally we'll put a post in the middle of it somewhere. There might be a girder that was used, and then a post that goes down here. All right, so when we're thinking about wood, here is the annular rings running around here and on here. But on this post, they run up and down. So that does not shrink. It does not move whatsoever. So if this is going to fall anywhere from a quarter to an eighth of an inch each, so that means that could be anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inch total fall. After a year, our floor could look like that. So one of the things that we had to do was we would cut the post shorter, and we had a jack that was put up into a drilled hole in the bottom of this thing. And after a year, and we would cover this would be covered with some sort of base molding. And then after a year, we come back, we take off the base molding, and we lower this post so that this floor comes back to level as best we could. And then, of course, these were installed again, and we left. Generally, this would all take place within the first heating season of the house. So, most of the time when people build a log home, they have a wood stove in there. And that wood stove is going to suck every bit of moisture out of all of these homes. And that can be problematic if, methods are not used to allow for the movement, or in the case of the posts, unmovement. So that gives you an idea of, log homes. And there's a bunch of things that you can do with log homes that I've never seen that before, but that looks cool. So, these can get very, very exotic, especially, if we go to, if we go back to here. Now, these are Western style log homes with the bigger logs because they have the lodgepole pines out there that grow much bigger than the ones we do here, and they can increase these. Something to talk about here, kind of off on a tangent here. See how they've put these trees in there, and they've just left them looking, with the tree. What am I trying to say? The butt of the tree. They haven't made it any different. It looks like the tree. Well, in the old Greek days, you've kind of give you a little history lesson here. In the old days, when people were building a house and they were going to use a post, they would turn the tree upside down because they were fearful that it would start growing again and tear the house down. So people really started getting, very creative with this big tree up here, this big portion of the tree. And we ended up with what we know today as a Capitol. And so that is what I'm talking about as a Capitol. You've seen those in Greek architecture. And so they would just take this and make it real dainty and pretty. And because they feared that if they put it in this fashion here, they was afraid. It was just, in that time, people were uneducated and they thought the tree would start growing again and tear the house down. So that is where the invention of the Capitol came from. And again, I mean, there's, the log home is like any other home. It is only, it's only limited by the amount of imagination that you have. Something also to be said. So log homes kind of lost their prestige there for a long time in the 1800s because it was a sign of poor people. The immigrants came over, they built the log home, they lived there in the homestead in the 16 and 1700s, and then they wanted to have a more luxurious house with sawed or milled lumber. So we would take and have to, when we think about siding, lap siding was we had to cut this by hand. We couldn't just get out there and, we didn't have a sawmill that could just do this. We had to do it by hand. So if we had a house that had sawed lumber in it, then we were further up on the totem pole. And so the timber frame, the log home lost its glory there for a while in the 1800s. But then in the 1900s, Lincoln Log Home, I believe it was, I can't spell Lincoln for crap. Lincoln Log Home Company, they started doing what is known as a package deal. And so they made these very simple homes in a package, sold them to the customer with basic instructions, and the homeowner could build these little homes themselves and save a bunch of money. And this was about the 1920s, somewhere in that neighborhood, that this company started going on, and the rest is history. The log home package was sold, and so people could get out there and they could build these log homes and then tell everybody that they built it by hand. But really, it was these logs had been put together somewhere in a factory, and they had erected the log homes, labeled them, taken them down, packaged them up, send them to Fred over in Louisiana or wherever he was, and then he could erect these in his spare time on the weekends and have himself a log home. So, and then of course, as we wanted to get better and better and better and bigger and prettier, and that's the way it is today. So one of the companies that I work for today still does log homes. It's not really a package. That's pretty much typical house there. And these as well. This is Grandview Peaks. And we have a couple of models that we have. That's not a log home. And we offer two different types, actually with there's several different sizes, but we offer the square log, and the round log. So you can get those in a half round or D-shaped. So this is what I mean by D-shaped, and it has it's got tongue and groove here. So you got a flat look on the inside. You have a log look on the outside. And then, of course, you can do the round log look, which is really not a round at all. It's a double D is basically what it is. And then the square log is pretty much like this. It has an indentation in here that you can go back and put chinking if you want to. Most of the time they don't. It's also a log on log system that's just screwed together. But that gives you an idea. That is the round log, or the D shape, one of the two there. That as well. I don't see the square log.
Which one's more common, the D shape?
No, I think we build more of the square log than we do the D shape. It just, it just depends really. And the people that are building these are not local people. They're, they're, what do you call them? Halfbacks. They come from the north. They move down to Florida and move halfback, so they're not, most of these people are not, they're not craftsmen at all. They're generally business people that has retired. And it's very, very common for us to build, a 3,000 square foot house for two people. Very common.
What a waste.
Yep. I mean, got the money, won't have flown it. So that gives you an idea of what kind of stuff that goes on in a log home.